Physics in 24 Problems from Halliday Resnick and Walker, 9th edition. So I'm working through 24 problems in the book to kind of help you understand some of the basic physics. Not teach you everything because that's not possible, but just kind of give you a flavor of what's going on here. So I'm just picking 24 problems and we're going to solve them. So I'm now over in the second half. I'm in chapter 21, electric charge. So let's talk about the problem and then I'll talk about the physics. And then we'll solve the problem. So the problem is 23 from the book, and so it's kind of hard to pick. Some of the questions I think were just really out there. And I didn't want to get something too basic either. So here we are. So I have these two charges, Q1 and Q2, on the y-axis, and there's a third charge, Q3, right there, starting at 5 meters away. We're going to slowly move this one in, and the question is, where is the force maximum and minimum on this charge right there as you move it closer? It's actually, maybe it could be a good problem. I haven't actually solved it yet. So they give the values for Q1 and Q2. They give the distance on the y-axis there. They give the charge for Q3, and it starts at 5 meters. I put that right there. Okay, so let's just start talking about electric charge. And I'm going to go a little bit backwards. When we have an object that has excess number of charges on it, it's because there are different numbers of protons and electrons. So really that's our fundamental charge. So our fundamental charge unit is the charge of an electron, which is the same as the charge on a proton, and that's 1.6 times 10 to the negative 19th coulombs. So coulombs is our unit for charge, and that's our fundamental charge. Now, if you have moving charge, I'm not sure why they introduce this here. They say, they define electric current as I, as the flow rate of charge, dq dt, and I'm not really sure why they use lowercase I. We normally use capital I, but that's what they put. I'm not sure. Okay, finally, we're going to get to the main event here. This is what it's all about, Coulomb's law. So Coulomb's law says that if I have two charges, I'm just going to put them there and there. I'm going to call that one Q1. I'm going to call that one Q2. And they both have some position. I'm going to write this as vector R1 and vector R2. Then there is some displacement between them. So the book actually writes Coulomb's law two ways. It writes it first the right way, and then it writes it the wrong way. So there is an electric interaction between these two forces, these two charges. And we can write that as this, let's call that F1 on 2 is going to be equal to 1 over 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 Q2 over R squared R hat. So in this case, we need some things. So first of all, 1 over 4 pi epsilon naught is the electric constant, and that's equal to 9 times 10 to the 9th. Newton meters squared per Coulomb squared, and sometimes we just call that K. Next, this R. R is the vector from here to there. So that's the magnitude of that vector squared, and then we have that unit vector R hat. Remember, that's super important because I can't write this as a vector without that. And yes, this looks a lot like the gravitational force from the gravitation chapter, which I don't like that word, gravitation. But this is Coulomb's law. And that's a pretty good way to write it. And this is the force on 2, right? So if they're both positive, then the force will be in the same direction as R hat, so it'll push it away. If one of those is negative, then the force will be in the opposite direction and they'll attract. So that tells us everything we need to know right there. It's a pretty good equation. Now, in the summary, they write F is 1 over 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 Q2 over the I think they even put this over the magnitude of R squared, and they just write it as a scalar value, which is not wrong. It's just not as useful, right? Over here in our problem, I'm going to have to deal with vectors anyway because they're not in the same direction. So I don't like that. If you're going to do this, just keep everything simple then. Don't give complicated problems. But I didn't write the book, so what am I saying? I'm just going to do what I do, right? Okay, one last thing, and then we'll do this problem. The electric interaction, the Coulomb force obeys the superposition principle. That means that if I have more than one charge, like I do in the problem, so suppose I have charge 1, charge 2, and charge 3, and I want to find the force on charge 3. Well, I can find the force between 1 and 2, 1 and 3, F1, 3. I can find this one, F2, 3, and then F net is F1, 3 plus F2, 3 as vectors. And that's why it's so important, right? I can't just find the magnitudes of these things and add them together. I have to have them as vectors. So that's what we're going to do. Good? Okay, good. Let's do the problem. And again, I didn't lecture the whole chapter, right? That's not what I do. I'm solving problems. Okay. I'm just trying to defend myself here. So we want to find the force on this particle right here at some distance x away. So let me just redraw the picture. And there are a lot of tricks you could use here, especially in a case with symmetry like this. But I'm going to do this the formal way. So first, I have particle 1, I have particle 2, I have particle 3. So I'm going to need this vector, R, let's call that R13. I don't like that notation, but I'm going to have to use that. And this one, R23, because I want to find the net force on that one. So this says that they're all positive, so I can just go ahead and sketch these out like that. And you should be able to see that if this charge is the same as that charge, and this distance is the same as that distance, which it is, then this magnitude is the same as that magnitude, and these directions in the y direction are going to be equal and opposite. So we really only have to find the force in the x direction. There is no force in the y direction. Okay. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to use that, invoke that symmetry to make the problem a little bit easier. So I'm going to need to find these two forces in that distance, but let's just start with 1, 3. So F13, the magnitude of it, is going to be equal to, I'm going to write that as K, Q1, Q3 over R13 squared. So what's R13 squared? Well, this is D, and that's X. So that's going to be equal to R13 squared is going to be equal to X squared plus D squared, right? Because I have here a right triangle, and so the R13 would be the square root of X squared plus D squared, but then square rooted, but then I need to square it, so I just get that. Now, that goes right there. I know K, I know Q1, I know Q2, but what I want to find is the X component, right? Because I want to find this X component right there. So F1, let me write it right here. F13X, the X component is F13, which I can find, I know everything there, times that's a 1, 3, cosine of theta, right? Cosine theta gives me the component in the x direction. But what is that theta? Well, it's the same as that angle right there, and I could find that. But let's just go ahead and say cosine of theta is adjacent over hypotenuse. So it's going to be x over R13, which is x squared plus d squared, square root. So now I can put that in here, and I can put the whole thing together, and I get F13, which is in the x direction, which is F12 in the x direction because they're identical. So I can write those, I just get two of them. So here I get my total force, F3x, which is, there is no y component. It's going to be 2 times k times Q1 times Q3, Q1 and Q2 are the same, over R squared, which is x squared plus d squared, times cosine theta, which I erased. It's going to be x over the square root of x squared plus d squared. Now let's just combine these two, because this is x squared plus d squared, and this is x squared plus d squared to the 1/2. So I actually get 2k q1 q3 x over x squared plus d squared to the 1 plus 1/2 is 3/2. And that's my force as a function of x. So that's it, right? Now the question is, where is this a maximum and where is this a minimum? Okay, we can actually think about things right now. So where is this going to be a minimum? And you could say, oh, it's at infinity. Infinite distance away, it's 0, right? Gotcha. Aha. But it starts at 5 meters, so it doesn't start. They got you on that one. They got you. Okay. Is this kind of? Do I have chalk on my? I do have chalk on my face. It's still there. I don't know. It's chalk. It gets everywhere. That's fine. But imagine that we're right here at x equals 0. Well, if they're all positive charges, that's going to be pushing straight down, that's going to be pushing straight up, and they will completely cancel, and there's no x component. And if I put in x equals 0, I get 0. This does give me a 0. So the minimum force is at x equals 0. So over here, where is it minimum? It's 0 at x equals 0. And we could do that either way. Now, where is it maximum? And I'm going to show you this in Python just for fun too, so we can plot the whole function. How do I find where it's a maximum? Well, it's not maximum right there because as I get closer, x gets smaller, but this one gets smaller too, so things start getting weird, right? So what I could do is to take the derivative, set it equal to 0, and then find that. It's a classic max-min problem. Now, it's not a trivial derivative, so I'm actually not going to do it. I'm going to just plot it. I'm going to plot this in Python because I think that'll be more fun, right? If this is not calculus courses, the goal is not to take max-min derivatives. It's to just, I want to plot this graphically and then find that. And that's not cheating, okay? So we're just going to do that. Why not? Okay. I am switching over to VPython. I will give you the code. But this is something that you should know how to do, right? How do you make graphs and plot these functions? Maybe you could do it in your graphing calculator, and that's fine. Let's just start off with the graph. Title equals problem 23. I'm going to give it that. X title is going to be, no. X title is going to be equal to x in meters. And then the y title is going to be equal to fx in newtons. And then I'm going to give it a width of 400, height of 200, just so it looks better in my zoomed in landscape I have here. Now I'm going to enter my values. Q1 is going to be equal to 3.2 times 10 to the negative 19th. 3.2 times 10 to the negative 19th. Q2 is equal to 6.4 times 10 to the negative 19th. I'm going to need D. D is 17 centimeters, so 0.17. X, I'm going to start X at 5 meters. So I'm just going to put X equals 5. I don't need Q3. No, this is Q3. Q2 is the same as Q1, so I don't actually need that. I do need K, 9 times 10 to the 9th. Now, the other thing I'm going to need is how big of a step am I going to take? When I move, how big am I going to move my step? So let's say dx is equal to 0.01, 1 centimeter, which is going to give me a lot of data, but I don't really care. Up here, I'm also going to need a graph. F1 equals G curve. That's my graph. I need something to plot. Color equals color.blue. So I think we're ready to rock and roll here. While x is greater than 0. So I'm going to be moving until I get to x equals 0. So the first thing I'm going to do is calculate my force. Fx is equal to, and I'm going to use my equation right here, 2 times k times q1 times q3 divided by, times x, divided by x squared. In Python, squared is star, it's not hat, plus d squared. All of that raised to the 3/2 power, so 3 divided by 2. That looks crazy, but that should work just fine. So now I'm going to plot that data point, f1.plot my x value and my fx value, and now I'm going to move my x. So x equals x minus dx, right? Because I'm moving towards the x-axis, towards x equals 0. That's a pretty simple program. Let's see if it works. If it does, I'm going to get excited. Yep, there you go. And that's exactly what we want. There's our maximum right there. Look, our maximum force. If you want to zoom in, I'm going to actually show you how to zoom in there if you want to get a very, very good value for that. But this does what we expect, right? As we're far away, the force is very small. And as we get closer, it's going to increase until it drops back down to 0. Perfect, perfect graph. You could just plot this from 1 to 0. Let's just do that, actually. So I'm going to start this at 1 because we're just looking for the part where we're interested in. And that looks a lot better. That's good. That's good enough. So there you can get the force, you can get the position. If you really want to get that really precisely, I'm going to do this. I'm going to change that to 0. Up here, my graph, I'm going to say fast equals false. When I do that, it's going to use the Plotly plotting engine right here, and it looks a little bit different. But now I can actually drag a box around that, and it'll zoom in. And so now you can get a much better value for what that actual force and position is, where it is 0. So there you go. The end. That was fun. That was fun because we got to make a graph. Let's save that, and I'll give you a link to that code down below. And then we'll do the next problem in the next chapter, and I'll talk to you later. Playlist down below. The end. I already said bye.